part 2 here. So the idea about where I'm going with all this is to say, if you want to start giving attention to who is Yahuwah, how do we be as people? You have to start thinking logically and say, why? Well, because I want to go to heaven when I die. That's why. Pretty self-centered. Yeah, but I'm given a consciousness of self in a body, and I have to tend my own body. I have to tend my own body for what I eat, how I bathe it, how I care for it. If I stick my hand into an engine and my hand gets chopped up, who am I going to blame? Myself. If I eat toxins and I get sick, who am I going to blame? The person that fed them to me. But if I know about it, then I have to blame myself or hold myself responsible. If I die and end up burning in hell, being thrown into the lake of fire, whether it's for eternity as an eternal consciousness of torment, or you cease from any consciousness for eternity, I've only got myself to blame. No, it's the people who taught me. Well, the scripture says, work out your own salvation in fear and trembling. Well, who's he talking to? Anybody who'll listen. Just because I exist, I have a responsibility for myself. Well, isn't that being self-centered? That's the way we're built. That's the way it's designed. Not only is there nothing wrong with being self-centered in that regard, but we better, those 5 virgins, bridesmaids, whoever, whatever they were, however you translate that word into English, they better be responsible for themselves. Who gave them not enough oil? Why didn't they bring enough oil? Well, it was fate that they should be the 5 that got thrown into the pit. A friend of mine told me once, he said, well, I reckon I'm just one of those that are going to be thrown into the lake of fire. Why? Well, I'm not a believer. Well, change that. Become a believer. I don't think so. It's like, what? His hope, based on his faith, was that he was just going to be thrown away. Are you destined for that? Is that just your fortune, your lot in life? Well, according to whoever I believe God is, that's what God's going to do to me. That's what he was saying. And it's like, find a different God. How do you find the true God? How do you know who the God, how do you know who the creator, the maker of heaven and earth actually is? Well, you hear stories. So here's an interesting thing, going back to what I started to say about, the Viking God, you're not allowed to mention their names. Well, don't mention their name. The guy whose name starts with the letter O, wink, wink, if you know who I mean. It's like, but is Shem fame, renown, and reputation? Is it his story? Is it the lore about who he is? Or is it just mentioning, how do you verbalize the spelling of those 4 letters of his name? Well, if you think about it, like somebody mentioned the word Zeus. Oh, you just said that word. That's the Greek god. You shouldn't say that. And it's like, listen, I can look at the spelling of that word, and I can look at the orthography of the Hebrew letters, Yod, He, Vav, He, and I can prove that's where that word Zeus came from. So is it just the name Yahuwah torqued, twisted, turned into another language? But is it the same one? Well, the name came from the same name, but what's the character and identity? What's the story of Zeus compared to Yahuwah? Well, am I allowed to say what's the reputation, the story of Jesus compared to Yahusha? Isn't that the same consideration? What about if I say it's the same story as the consideration of Adonai? Adonai compared to Odin. Oh, I said the word. Is that where they got the word? Is that where the Vikings got the name of their great war god, Adonai? muck around with the translation a little bit of distortion, and you get the name of their guy. Well, there's an interesting thing about their guy, and I haven't looked this up, and I'm not going to look it up, but I bumped into a tale, a story, that their chief deity did something for a reason. And it's like, well, how ancient is this story? Well, most of the Viking lore goes back to the Middle Ages, 1200s. That's when the Vikings started swarming across Europe and stealing everybody else's stuff and killing them and taking over. Yeah, but where'd the first Viking runes come from? It goes back to, they said, about 300 AD. Well, that's right about the time that Constantine established the Christian church at the Council of Nicaea, right around 300 AD. So that's when Christianity got its, this is what it is and this is what it's not. The Viking runes have their start, but then they've morphed a bit. This one article was saying that the original Viking runes look pretty much like ancient Greek, which looks exactly like Paleo-Hebrew. The very ancient Greek was written right to left, just like Hebrew, but then it swapped and became written left to right, the way the English and Latin is written. But the ancient Greek is not Nordic runes, but it became, as it morphed, as it developed. So Isaac Moses's book, The Origin of Speeches, goes back and looks at how all the languages in the world can literally trace their way back to the Edenic, Garden of Eden, that word, Edenic original language, which is Hebrew, but you're not allowed to say Hebrew if you're a Jew, because then everybody thinks you're just being Jew-centric and making everything all about the Jew. And it's like, it's not all about Jew, it's all about Yahuwah. But see, you bump into people's attitudes, so you have to change words. Let's call it the Edenic language. Why Edenic? That's the Hebrew word Eden, ayin dalet nun. Eden. Well, if you put an H in front of it, you get hedon. Hedonism, where it's just all about gratuitous pleasure. Isn't that a sin? That's the meaning of the word Eden, where everything was beautiful, wonderful, pleasurable. Everything was just overflowing pleasure and satisfaction. Became the English word hedon, hedonist, hedonism. So that's not bad. That was the state of bliss. That was the most beautiful place that Yahweh wanted his people, that he made Adam and Hua to live. Well, just to jump real quick onto this Viking thing, and I say that because this guy down here, I'm talking about maybe giving a presentation of something. It's like, if you're going to appeal to somebody's inquisitiveness about, hey, ancient language, and hey, we're in a Viking, axe throwing place, it's like, just even mention something about what are these, who were these people? Where'd they come from, and why is there an interest? Because they swarmed across Europe conquering, and a lot of people's, you might say, genetics probably goes back to those guys, but they became known as a bunch of different people across the world, not just Vikings, but they all seem to share this certain design motif, the Celtic knot. Why the Celts? Well, who are the Celts? The C, the letter C in English, is the letter G, the third letter in the alphabet in Hebrew, which is pronounced as a G. So the Gaul, the Galatians, in English became the Celts, the Celtic. The Celtic knot is seen as, in particular, three strands, if not maybe more, that are interwoven in such a way there's no beginning and no end. That's a design motif, as a border, as a perimeter. And there's a verse in the scripture that Yahweh says, because his people Israel betrayed the covenant, betrayed him, acted treacherously, didn't love him, didn't even like his stuff, that he was going to let them be uncovered, Gimel Lamed, from their cities, ravaged by their enemies, taken into captivity, Gimel Lamed, dispersed across the face of the earth, strewn, scattered like Jezreel, the name of, is it Hosea's children? Lo Ruhama, Jezreel, Lo Ami. Name your children You're not my people. I will not have mercy, and you'll be scattered. But you'll be harvested and regathered. That's the promise to be hoped for. If you read the meanings of the letters, if you read the words, the story's right there with Hosea. But it says in Jeremiah, I think it's Jeremiah 3 and 4, that he's going to take his people. And you don't want me? Okay, you're lusting after your paramours, your other lovers, your Elohim Achim, your false gods. Okay, get out of here. I'm going to take, Yahweh said to his people, I'm going to take away everything I gave you and send you back out into the land where you can search out your lovers. But you'll realize they don't exist, because they're all vain imaginations of false gods that don't exist. And then you're going to come, he said, I'm going to hedge your way with thorns. And you'll look for your path and you won't find them, and you'll have to come back to me. And when you do, you better be with a pure heart, a clean heart, a broken heart, broken of repenting for the way you treated me and my concerns, is Shem. Well, then that means the Celtic knot is the heraldry of the curse of Israel betraying Yahweh. And they became known as the Galut, which is used as a term of disparagement, like you stupid idiot. So the northern kingdom was known as the Galut, because the southern kingdom taken into captivity in Babylon, the northern kingdom and unto Assyria. The southern kingdom came back. They had a difficult time. They still had their struggles. They still had turnings away, but they remained separated, and they're not brought back together until Ezekiel 37, when Yahweh says, pick up these two sticks, hold them one, and it'll become one in your hand, and the nation will be reconfederated. But that's not happened yet. But that's the thing to hope for, because that's the thing that Yahweh said, if you study, if you learn. And when he said, love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, you got to know who it is you're loving, and you got to know what did he say, so that you can wrap your affection around he who is going to make it so. So my take on what I was trying to mention about the object of affection the last few weeks is that if you don't know who Yahuwah is, based on what he said and what he said his relationship with his people is, including the blessing and including the curse, and including the recovery of the curse back to a place of blessing, then you have a misdirected hope, because it's not Yahuwah. It's an Elohim Achim, a different God, a fake God, a God of other people, a God of the Gentiles, in which case you might be more lost than you thought you were. But he said he's going to cast his people out. They were going to forget that they were ever his people, forget that he was ever their God. He's going to hedge their way with thorns. Their path, their journey, their time on earth is going to look like, if you're going to draw it as a map, it'll look just like the Celtic knot. But this interesting thing, this Adonai, this master god of the Vikings, did, and this is the strange thing. Think about this. He wanted to know what the meanings of the runes were. It's like, he's God. Why doesn't he just declare the meanings of the runes? He can't, because he's not the real Elohim. Don't they know that by looking at their story? Somehow this guy knew that the letters meant something, and he didn't know what they meant. In other words, the letters had a vitality or a life or a meaning, an essence beyond even his chief deity status, which means the letters were more godly than this guy, the let's call it the Adon of the Vikings. Adon, Aleph, Dalet, Vav, Nun. Don, like Dan, means I will judge. Adon, Adonai, is master, Lord, chief deity. The Adon, the Adonai of the Vikings, is this guy named Odin. Okay, that's his name. That comes from Adon, I believe. But the reason I'm saying that is because if he thinks the letters have have a meaning that he doesn't comprehend, then there's another source of information, or the letters were equipped by some greater deity, which means he's not really a deity at all. He's just a superhuman. He's some level beyond Adam, but he's not. Well, who's the chief deity? The only chief deity, El Elyon, the Most High. Well, that's Yahuwah Zavot, otherwise known as El Elyon, otherwise known as El Shaddai. But El Shaddai means the omnipotent. That's a quality aspect. El Elyon, the Most High. That's just say compared to any other, he's the one at the top. But that's not his name. And if you look at Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, well, that's to say there's a dot, line dot. There's the one that exists, the one who causes it to exist. But that's still not his name. What's his name? Tell him Yahuwah. Yahuwah, that's the name that sticks in your head, but that's not necessarily his name. What's his attributes? What's his story? Who is he? That's the Shem. Well, didn't he say he's the ALEF-TAV, the beginning and the end, the first and the last? Didn't Yahweh say something about that? I forget where it is. It's written in the Old Testament. But Yeshua also said it in the book of Revelation that he's the ALEF-TAV. So if he says, I'm the ALEF-TAV, he's giving ALEF-TAV a greater supremacy than even his name, because he says, that's what I am. So the ALEF-TAV-ness had to pre-exist, and Yeshua says, I'm that. Where'd ALEF-TAV come from? What's it mean? It's the one word never translated. It's the fourth of 7 words in Genesis 1:1, written in Hebrew. The middle, like if you could look at a menorah, the middle word of Bereshit, bara, Elohim, ALEF-TAV, Hashemayim, ve'ALEF-TAV, ha'eretz. There you go. It's the fourth of 7 words. But what's it mean? One word never translated. Nobody knows what it means. ALEF-TAV is composed of the first letter and the last letter. But what's that mean? Somebody has to be able to look at the letters and give them definition. Well, who has the authority? Nobody has the authority. That's why the Adon of the Vikings even had to say, gee, where do I figure this stuff out? What do I have to do to figure out what these letters mean? And so as the legend goes, this Adon of the Vikings sacrificed himself to himself. How do you do that? Well, if you're the chief god, or you think you're the chief god, you sacrifice yourself to yourself by lifting himself up and hanging himself on a tree suspended between heaven and earth. Why would he do that? Why would he suspend himself on a tree between heaven and earth, hanging between heaven and earth, somewhere in between, up there and down here, hung himself on a tree, sacrificing himself to himself? Well, it doesn't take much of the imagination to say, where did those guys get that story? From Jesus Christ, the guy who's supposed to be the Father and the Son both, and the Son got sacrificed to the Father, being hung on a cross. That's where that came from. Well, is it corrupt of me to mention that? Because if that's not truly Yahweh's avot of the Old Testament, am I profaning the words out of my mouth to even mention that Jesus Christ's story is that he got crucified on a cross, lifted up, suspended halfway between heaven and earth, sacrificing himself to himself because he's really God the Father in the form of the Son? Same story as the Viking story. But in the Viking story, he did that in order to understand what the meaning of the letters, the runes, were. And here's my point in mentioning all this. Without it, if you don't acknowledge or see that Yeshua is the Word made flesh, and that the word of John 1:1 is the Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters, the reason he came and he said in the Garden of Gethsemane in John 17, I don't want to do this. Is there any other way? Nevertheless, not my will, my Father, but yours. O Elohim, is there any other way? He wasn't making himself equal to his Father, but he said there was a certain capacity of favor, of equality that he had before he came here. What is that? He didn't describe it, but there's some connection. Nicodemus said, we know you came from heaven, because nobody can do the things you do unless Elohim is with you. We know you didn't betray heaven. You're in heaven's favor. But what does that mean? How does that work? He didn't give it to us. But what he gave us is this narrative story that he came from the other side of creation. So creation starts with the letter bet. Bereshit. In, on, with, among, through. The letter bet is a prefix letter. This cosmos, betness, the noun, the house, the this, to embody, to look, to be able to define and see and touch and be inside and outside, to give a reference of being. Aleph is all just woo, this oneness that you can't define. If you define it, it's betness. The Alephness is that stuff that nobody knows, but we know it exists, but we can't define it. That's Alephness. The Creator built the universe. Here's the bet. Who's he? He's the guy who put it here. Well, what does that mean? He's just the one who made this happen. That's all we have. That's the Aleph thing. So Yeshua said, hey, my father, your father, my Elohim, your Elohim. I came from there. Here I am. That's okay. We see you in bet form, but hey, the Alephness is undefinable, undescribable, but you'll everything I say is what my father said. Everything I do is what I saw my father do. So if he says I'm ALEF-TAV, it's because his father said I'm ALEF-TAV. And he says, I'm not doing anything on my own. I'm just showing you what he's about. Does that mean I worship him as God? No, that means I listen to his words and worship Yahweh as Elohim. That's my take on it, because I am responsible for myself to wrap my mind around what he said. But he's not different from Yahweh at all. So in that sense, I can say, well, he is. He is the manifestation of Yahuwah, but I got to wrap my mind on worshiping Yahweh Zavot, the Elohim, who's the Aleph side. Well, that's my wrestle, working out my own salvation with fear and trembling. If anybody else says, I don't know what you're talking about, well, then you figure it out for yourself. But see, ChatGPT said nothing of this, because how do I describe the Aleph compared to the Bet, unless you are willing to say, let me look at the alphabet. Why would you look at the alphabet? Because you look at John 1:1, in the beginning he created the Word, and the Word became Yahusha. The man with flesh and blood who was put to death to restore it, to give life to the Adams who were already born subject to death. He brought them life through that death. That's why he had to come and die, because that's the plan, how he worked it out. We talked about that before. There's another conversation. But what I'm saying is, that's the reason he came, and that's what's written in the letters. What's written in the letters is Aleph, coming from the heavens, to Bet into the cosmos as a corporeal body, Gimmeling, traveling, linking, Dalet, the portal. He said, I am the door, back Gimmeling to the Bet, the house of my father, Aleph. But he also came, he's the door being birthed into the humanity as of the woman, the hey, the feminine suffix, as vav, the man, who would Zion be put to the weapon, chet thrown into the tomb to bridge vav over the moat surrounding the exclusionary kingdom of heaven. Chet, that is inaccessible other than this drawbridge dropping over the Zion moat. I'm giving a couple different meanings to the letters here and a couple different trains of thought, but so that those who do cross over into the Het place, Tet, the round rock rolled in front of the Het sepulcher, but Tet, the seal claimed Yod as owned and possessed by Yahuwah, Yod, the maker of heaven and earth, the kingdom of life. Those who don't get in are subject unto the death of the Zion. So you see, as you read the letters, you read in both directions, it's all right in there. I can see it. Yeah, but the Jews don't see it. That's why they think Jesus Christ is a punk who's an infidel, who's rotting in hell as we speak. They have no regard for him. Isn't he in right there in their own letters? They don't see it. Why? Because their rabbis have told them to hate and loathe him with vile disgust. So are they going to burn in hell because they do what the rabbi said a good Jew does? I don't know. Well, if they can't see Yeshua in the alphabet, then they only know part of the meanings of the letters, because I can run out the rest of the letters. That's 10 out of 22 right there. And if Tav means the Aleph is hereby accomplished, just like Yahweh said to Moshe, he's up on the Mount Sinai, and he says, okay, Moshe, you're going to go back, get the Israelites out of the confines of bondage to the Egyptians, and you come and worship me on the mountain. And he says, well, can you give me a trinket, a little token, or a little proof that I can hold on to that that ensures me that you're going to do that? And he says, yeah, when you come back and stand on this mountain, that's the proof that you're going to stand and worship me on this mountain. Like I just said, in other words, Yahweh says, oh, when I give you my word, it is its own token of proof. I'm not going to give you some little trinket that right and get out of here. Go back and get them out of Egypt. It's like, what? When Yahweh says something, that's Aleph goes forth. Like an arrowhead shot. You can see the Aleph head in the letter shape. Arrowhead in the shape of the letter Aleph. And it's like, when it hits its target and the Aleph becomes accomplished, that's Tav. The Aleph didn't turn into Tav. Aleph is still Aleph, but Aleph is manifest there. Hey, look at, just like he said, that's the meaning of Tav. The mark, the sign, the target, the fact that it's just like he said. So I see that's ALEF-TAV. And if I say, oh, I know what ALEF-TAV means, the one word that no rabbi or sage or smart, wise man will ever even, it's unknowable. No, it means that which Yahweh said will be accomplished just like he said. And then when I see the words in Scripture, the word that proceeds from my mouth won't return void. It'll accomplish what I set it forth to do. That's ALEF-TAV. According to what a man does, it'll come back on him. That's ALEF-TAV. Oh, that's Mishpat. Yeah, but it's also ALEF-TAV. That whatever you do is going to come back on your own head because Yahweh said so. Yahweh's going to make sure that what you Aleph comes back on you Tav. Well, if that's ALEF-TAV, then why do they say nobody knows what ALEF-TAV means? Because they have defined ALEF-TAV as undefinable. So nobody knows. But ALEF-TAV is really what Yahweh said it's going to happen. Then what did he say? If you got the 22 letters, then you go, how do we know what the 22 letters mean? Because Yeshua came from heaven to earth in material form as that word launched from Yahweh's mouth, and he had to map out the 22 letters as this stepping stone path, as this gauntlet, this gamut, until the Tav accomplished. When he comes back, Reshin Tav, to gather up his betrothed, Aleph Reshin Tav, harvesting Kuf, like a sickle, those he would put into his net, Reshin Tav, and take with him to the by and by, the remade heaven and renewed earth. See, it's all in there. But see, if the Adon of the Vikings had to suspend himself, sacrificed himself to himself on a tree between heaven and earth in order to find the meaning of the letters, Yeshua did it on purpose to portray the meaning of the letters. That's the great irony. Does anybody who's a Viking remember that? Is that written into their culture? Not that I've heard. In fact, what I read one time was that their Adon never did figure out the real meanings of the letters. Oh, they gave meaning to the letters, so the letters are almost written as phonetic hieroglyphics, similar to Paleo-Hebrew, similar to ancient Greek. It's a certain shape with a certain meaning. Yeah, that's how you pronounce words and spell words, but they know they mean something else. What more do they mean? I don't know, but we know that we can project blesses and curses if we say the words, write the words, manipulate the words, but we don't know really. They tried and tried. Isaac Newton tried and tried to find what else is written in those scriptures. Never could find it. Studied mathematics and physics, and apparently he was some type of, let's say, occultic sorcerer, under the guise of Christianity, but who and what the man was in reality, who knows? But he was looking for something. What's in these words? What's in these writings? And so when David said in Psalm 119, verse 18, open my eyes, Yahweh, that I may see the Nephilim, the hidden wonders written in your Torah. He was looking for what's behind the words. What do these letters really mean? Yeshua walked it out, but did anybody know that? Why would the Adon of the Vikings do that? Have himself lifted up, hung on a tree between heaven and earth in order to find out the meanings of the letters, but never did. Yeshua being lifted up on the crucifix between heaven and earth is manifesting what the letters mean, because he was Zion, the Vav man that came gimmeled from Aleph into the Bet universe through the Dalet, the pelvic portal of Hay the woman, as the man to be crucified, Zion, put to the weapon and entombed, and then Pezadi resurrect 3 days and 3 nights later. Kaf Lamed one day, Mem Nun the other day, Samak IMP Pei the other day. That's the code of 3, resurrecting, ascending 40 days later, Kuf, but yet Kuf to come back around as Resh Shin Tov, the Resh man, the Sheen, the shining almighty, to harvest those who are his. There's the meaning of the letters. Jews can't see it. Vikings can't see it. Can you see it? To see what those letters mean in reference to Yeshua. Well, Tav is a mark, a sign, a symbol, an oat, an ALEF-TAV. A sign, a symbol, a logogram, a statement, a graphic regarding a stipulation of agreement, an oath. Hey, that's like the 10 Devarim. The stipulations of agreement. What did Yahweh say, and what do we have to do in order to be his people and satisfy the vow? What did he say? So each one of these letters are composed into words, and if you learn how to Haggah, the words, navigate the spelling of words, navigate the language, to find out what's entrusted to Israel, his people, you alone, Israel, have I revealed myself to. I've shown you my bejewelment. I've made myself known. Nun Vav Dalet Ayin Tav Yod, nudati. I have nuditied myself to you, Israel, only you. And you betray me, you scorn me. You don't believe me. When you come back, then I will make my Shem Hagadol, my great name, my majestic, celebrated name, Kadosh. Holy, sacred, set apart. Oh, it's much more than that. That's just the limited English definitions pinned onto that word, Kadosh. So going back to that thing I first mentioned that Nicholas put up in the chat, what did the guy write in the bottom right-hand corner of that 10 Commandments thing that he wrote? Nun Kaf Tav Bet. Well, Kaf Tav Bet is katab, katuba, that's a writing. Nun prefix means to have gone into the act or doing the act of writing. So writing, Ayin Lamed, a yoke, Yod Dalet Yod. Well, that's my hand. Dalet Yod is sufficient, but Yod Dalet is hand, arm. So he says, I have written by my hand, Yod Kuf Vav Tav, Yod Aleph Lamed. Well, Kuf Vav, that's that word for hope. Yod Kuf Vav Tav, Yod. Aleph Lamed. Well, Aleph Lamed is that word for El, Elohim. It's like, I hope to God. It's like, well, yeah, it's kind of like, I hope to God. I've written by my hand, expressing the great hope of Elohim. I mean, what is that word exactly? Can you look at that word in the dictionary? See, if you know the meanings of the letters, whether the word is accurate in the dictionary or whether you can find a dictionary that has it, whether you even have a dictionary, it doesn't really matter. The next word is sofer. That's the word scribe. Samik Vav Pei Resh. Well, the sefer is to connect the dots. Sefer is to count, similar to Mem Nun, manna. It's also to connect the dots to make a constellation in the sky. It's also to be able to be literate. Can you sefer? Do you know how to read? Bet Nun, son, S-O-N, but Bet Nun Hey is to build. Bet Yod Nun is to understand. So a son is building the father's house with the understanding of the father. It's the father's house. It's not the son's house. If a son betrays his father, if the son doesn't walk in the ways of his father, he's I'm going to make my own house. I'm going to be my own Ab. Okay, but that's a different matter. The voice of the Ab in heaven said, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." It said that at the Transfiguration, Moshe and Elijah standing there. The voice also from heaven when Yeshua was being baptized. "This is my beloved son." This is Ben Dodi. Beloved is Dodi. This is son of David. This is my beloved son. Same words in Hebrew. Kaf He Resh. Well, is this guy saying my father's name is Kahar, Kaf He Resh, and I'm the scribe who is the son of Kahar, Yitzhak, laughter? Or I could say the word Kaf He Resh. Well, Kaf He means thus, here, now. He Resh is mountain, but He Resh is also pregnant. Hey, Resh is like the mountain. Hey, look at the mountain sticking up above the horizon. Hey, look, the pregnant girl. She's at her peak of being, you might say. She's pregnant. What does it mean, Hey, Resh? What does that word mean in Hebrew? Written by my hand. The hope to be able to read and write with understanding, like the mountain of laughter. Is that what he's saying here? Scribe, or to learn to read and write, or hereby writing. Shinun Tav is the word for different or two, and then Bet Ayin Lamed Tav Yod Hey. Well, you look up in the dictionary, Bet is the prefix letter that means in being in the capacity of or the condition of. Hey Bet Ayin Hey means to express or uncover, very similar to Gimel Lamed. Bet Ayin Lamed Tav means to own or possess or clearly or obviously, to promote. The Ayin Lamed Hey, Aliyah, Ayin Lamed Yod is to promote the ascent. If you look at the word in the dictionary, Ayin Lamed Tav Yod Hey, it says to define unrighteousness. Because people of Israel would go up to the high places where there was mountains and trees. And, let's build an altar to the Elohim Achrim, the false gods. Anybody but Yahweh. Let's just profane every single hill, every single valley, every single meadow, every single shady tree. The people of Israel would do everything they could. Were they thinking they were doing the right thing? They do everything they could, doing what he said not to do in order to worship or appease or burn incense or say, hey, any false gods out there, will you please look in our direction and smile at us and do us favors? And it's like, what the hell is the matter with these people? Our ancestors of Israel. Gosh. Hey Resh Hey, the mountain, but Hey Resh Hey means evident. Resh Aleph Hey is to see, to make clear, to be allowed to comprehend. But Hey Resh is mountain, but Hey suffix then is what's clearly expressed by this promontory. Go back. Written by my hand. He who has hope to Elohim learns to read, is literate as the son of the significant thing, like the mountain of laughter. He who learns, he who's a scribe, it's like you've trekked the mountain of laughter. This is like the sport of the heavens. Yitzhak, to sport, to be amused, to play, to laugh from the heart, from the depth of your soul. That kind of laughter. Like Sarah, pushing nearly 100 years old, and she says, now you're going to give me laughter? Now you're going to allow me to enjoy being a woman and get pregnant? Who is this Elohim? What's he doing? Sofer Shanta, writing to, then it says, Lamed Kuf Het. Well, Kuf Het is the word to take hold. In order to take hold, Lamed Vav Chet Tav. Well, Lamed Vav Chet means a tablet, or it was tabulated, like something put into a format like a calendar or a booklet. And then it says, hey, Aleph, and there's dots above that, which is the word here, Benim, children, here, children, and then the same word again, Lamed Vav Chet Tav. Well, Lamed Het as a word means moist, fresh, new, vibrant, vigorous. And the last word used in the sentence is hey, Bet Resh Od. Well, Bet Resh is the word bar, which is to be refined, but it's also bara, hey, Bet Resh or Bet Resh Aleph, to pure, clean, clear, explained, pronounced, articulated. It's the word for syllable, or to divide the heavens, or to categorize, to break down a word into syllables, or to break down the spelling of the word into letters. Each letter a syllable in Hebrew. Ha, ba, ra, ya. Habri. To group the letters together is one way to read. To break the letters down to each letter is its own syllable is another way to read. So the man who wrote this piece, this isn't scripture. This is the man, bottom right corner of that table of the 10 Commandments. But then if you look real close, it's like there's a funny letter in there. It's written in modern Hebrew, but it's not really a real letter. It's a combination of the Aleph and Lamed. So for the word for Elohim, it's this one strange letter that's a combination of the Aleph and Lamed, then Hey Yod Mem. But then look at, I know the 10 Commandments, the first verse of Exodus 20 says, Anoki Yahweh Eloheka. Anoki Yahweh, that's supposed, so he wrote Aleph, Nun, Kaf, Yod, and then that next word, he didn't write Yod, He, Vav, He. What he did is he wrote that combination of the Aleph, Lamed with another little Yod. But if you look at how he wrote the Yod, it's a little different. So he made up, did he make it up, or was it already established? Who knows? He made up his own letter, which is the name of Yod He Vav He. And it looks like it's a Yod combined with a Aleph, which is combined with a Lamed. Y'all? Hey, y'all! What? Is the word y'all in the 1700s a Jewish scribe's way to say Yod He Vav He? So everybody in the South that says, how y'all doing? That you're using the sacred name? Just kidding around, but that's what it looks like, because that's how you would pronounce that word that he replaced Yod He Vav He with. But here he's saying, I hope to God, I hope to El, that by my hand, I am doing the greatest thing that I can do as I walk the face of the earth. I learned to read, I'm a scribe, I'm literate. And I'm writing these words, which will promote the ascent. Bet, Ayin Lamed Tav, hey, here, children, be restored with moist, fresh, new, vibrant, vigorous, clearly explained. Just speak these words. This is the epitome. This is it. It's basically what he's saying. My point is, you can sit here and say, I got to learn to be the best athlete in the league or in the world, Guinness Book of World Records. Or you can learn to be a musician and play. There's this guy named Dimash, D-I-M-A-S-H. You never heard him? Guy knows half a dozen languages and he sings in various languages. His voice does 7 octaves and he sings. It's astounding. It's absolutely astounding. Check him out. He did one that's called SOS. A man in distress. You see in a foreign language, but what his voice does is like, I've never heard anybody sing like that. This guy's astounding. But even if you could sing like that, does he know how to read these words? There's something about learning how to read these words, which, if you've ever done anything in your entire life, if you've ever hoped to accomplish something in your life, if you want to leave this life and having said, well, I made my mark, made your mark. What do you, on the corner of the furniture there? What do you mean you left your mark? Oh, I had a world record until it's beaten by somebody else. You've got to work out your own salvation. Are you going to be saved? What's it take to be saved? Well, the church says all I got to do is believe in Jesus. Is that true? They wouldn't lie to you about anything important. Well, the rabbi says all I have to, it's like, well, they wouldn't lie to you about anything important, like who's the Messiah. The church wouldn't lie to you about anything like important, like which day is the holy day. Who are you going to trust? You better learn to read. Why? For your salvation. You better learn to read to figure out whether your salvation is contingent on what you believe, because why else would there be 5 bridesmaid virgins who don't get in? Well, how important is it? Where do you start? Hey, let's just look at the names of the first few books of the Bible. Bereshit. What does that word mean? Genesis. It means genetics, generator. It's how you start something up. Bereshit, in the beginning. Bet is the prefix in. Rosh. Rosh is head. Well, that's the beginning. Well, but Rosh is also the pinnacle. The top of the mountain is Rosh. The foundation, the platform that other stuff is built on is also considered Rosh. So Rosh is basically first, greatest, best. Pinnacle, tops, the ultimate. Shin Yod Tov, sheet is that which you place other stuff on. It's like the word sit in English. You sit down on the chair, on the foundation, on the basis, the base. You set things on the base foundation, but it's the base foundation that sustains the pinnacle. It's both. In Hebrew, it's both. So you could say the word Bereshit, translated Genesis, literally means this is the ultimate highest best, but it's also the first and foremost and the most solid. This is kind of like the Aleph and Tav, just in the word Bereshit. And I could also look at it and say, well, if bet means in, but bet resh means pure and clean, but bet resh is also son, S-O-N. Ben means son, bar means son, but it also means refined and purified. Aleph Shin is the word fire. Resh Aleph is the word that means to put on exhibition. But Resh Aleph Shin is also head. So I could say, well, if Bet is a house and Resh is stepped out of the house with his head on fire, it's like, oh, the son of the house steps out of the house and he's got his head on fire. What's that mean? He has got a great idea? I mean, how many things are in Bereshit? But if it's the first best big idea for the son to step out of this house, is that YHUH, Mashiach figure stepping out of his father's house and into this house? Because this is the Bet cosmos, and the Aleph, the father's house, is in the Aleph realm. Pondering. What about Exodus? Oh, it's not Exodus, it's Shemot. What's Shemot? It means names, places. The big idea, names and places. Well, that's like this heaven. Is that the sky? That's Shemayim, but names and places. Well, see, one of the key things in Psalm 119 that we're going to look at is the first 4 words of the first 4 verses could be read as Ashri, Ashri, Af, Atah. Atah, ALEF-TAV, Hey. Well, that's translated the word you, Y-O-U, but Hey is to express. So my way of looking at this is that ALEF-TAV, Hey can be you expressing ALEF-TAV. You, Hey-ing, expressing ALEF-TAV. Well, what's ALEF-TAV? If you don't know what ALEF-TAV is, you can't understand anything David was saying in Psalms 119. So the only way, this is the point of all this, is to say the only way to know anything is to realize what is ALEF-TAV. So I did that whole talk a couple months ago on Sephering ALEF-TAV and the Gabor Yahweh, to make it your purpose in life to master this challenge of comprehending and then expressing, Hey-ing ALEF-TAV. Yeah, but you don't really care. Then he is not the object of your affection. And if he's wrapped up in ALEF-TAV and makes it available to you, then for Yeshua at the Garden of Gethsemane in John 17 to say, The glory that you gave me before I came here, I've revealed as your name to my taught ones. And I only say what I heard you saying, and I've taught them to be one with us the way I am with you. Then that means we're supposed to be ALEF-TAV. We're supposed to be one with him. And if he says, I'm ALEF-TAV, because his father says, I'm ALEF-TAV, then I should be able to say, I'm ALEF-TAV. And if I can say, I'm ALEF-TAV, it means I have to have a heart for the stuff ALEF-TAV talks about. I have to hey the ALEF-TAV, which is the word you. And if it says, Ashri, Ashri, Af, Atah, the word ALEF-Pei is nose, but it's also wrath, but it also means to be characterized by haying ALEF-TAV. Ashri is the word blessing, praiseworthy. Anybody want to get blessed? Anybody want to have a life that you can say, I did it, I lived it, I accomplished what there was to accomplish on the face of the earth. There was distractions. Be the best video game player, be the best musician, be the best gymnast, be the best wealthiest man, but did you hey ALEF-TAV? Did you seek? Did you tav resh? Did you explore the possibilities of even comprehending that ALEF-TAV was comprehensible? Did you put your time and effort, your energy to say, I need to know what this is. I'm going to wrap my mind, my heart, my vigor seeking ALEF-TAV. You can do that, did you know? I was never told that. Never did I hear these words in my entire life. But what is Shemot? Names? Shem is name, place. It's your nature and character. Is he talking about? See, if you're not his people, you're dead men. You only live if you are of the kingdom of Yahuwah. There's a psalm that says, Yahuwah commands the blessing. Chayim ed olam. Live forever. Yahweh commands the blessing for his people to live forever. So there's a Christian teaching that people are born as living spirits. And then there's other people who say that's not true. You don't automatically live. So if he brings you alive for the second life and you're a dead man, he throws you into the lake of fire and that's the second death unto eternity. Some people say, no, you're going to be screaming in pain for eternity. And other people say, no, he's not going to do that. You're just going to cease to exist for eternity. Which is it? Nobody knows. There's disagreements. But the point is, Yahuwah commands the blessing, Chayim et Haolam, live forever. It's Yahuwah's jurisdiction to speak life to Adam for eternity. That's who he is. That's his realm. That's his jurisdiction. And if you want that, you get to choose that. And if you choose not that, then you're ba'ashamat, bet aleph shin mem tav, excommunicated, bet in, bet aleph to arrive or to come into, aleph shin fire, shin mem name, mem tav dead, Ashem, aleph shin mem is something stinks. So the word ba'ashamat, literally that means excommunicated, can be read as something stinks around here. Oh, it's you. In fire, name dead, you're excommunicated from us. You no longer exist. If you don't choose Yahweh to be your Elohim, choose life and have him speak life and give life to you, in fire, name dead, you're gone forever. So the Shemot, the ones with a name, are the ones that are his people. And if that's the concept at Bereshit, is that the reason this, like there's that movie, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or the Universe, there's some computer that somebody makes, and after thousands of years, it finally gives the answer to the question asked of the great computer is, what's the meaning of the universe, life, and everything? It's like, what a silly, stupid question, but what a profound question. What's the meaning of the universe, life, or life, the universe, and everything? And the computer finally says, okay, here's the answer, and everybody is crowded around. Well, here we get the answer. What's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? And the computer says 42. So everybody's like, what? 42? What's that mean? Oh, that's another question. And that might take centuries for the computer to be cranking out what's the meaning of 42. And it's like, Ha ha, silly, stupid movie. No, no. What's 42? Well, in Hebrew, it's mem bet. Mem bet. What is that supposed to mean? Well, mem is a prefix letter, means the place of or away from. And what's bet? Bet's to exist. Bet is the letter that's Aleph became Bet. Bet is the cosmos. Bet is the universe. The place of the universe. For the universe to even exist is mem bet. Maba, maybe. What's betness? To exist in form. Well, if you don't choose Yahweh to be your Elohim, you ain't going to exist. And if you do exist, he'll give you a name. He'll give you a new name when he comes back. And so Shemot, are those the names of the people who exist because they chose him? Is that the big deal from Bereshit? Hey, I got a big idea. Why don't I learn the truth? And why don't I seek truth? Why don't I seek Yahuwah, who is truth, and ask him what he said to do? And if he says, don't work on the seventh day, and the church says, we're going to change it to honor Jesus and make it the first day, then your Jesus is a fake Elohim Achrim, and you guys are liars, and the devil's the father of lies, which means the church is a construct, a son of the devil, a son of Satan. Yeah, but we're God's holy people, the bride of Christ. Or so you say. Can you see it? Is it that hard? It's just in the words. Hey, the third book, the book of Numbers, is called Bamidbar. Well, that means in the wilderness. Bet is the prefix letter that means in Madabar, Mem Dalet Bet Resh, it means wilderness. Does it? Well, that's what they say. But the word Dabar, yeah, it could be pasture land. It could be out where the grass grows. But Dabar is also word. Dabar is also matter. The word Dabar is also thing. And the mem prefix of the word is the place of words. So bet as a prefix letter means belonging to, or that's in the condition of it to be put into the condition of being able to be expressed in words. That's Bamidbar. Well, that's the language. That's studying this language. So those who will, I got a big idea, my head's on fire, I'm gonna have a name, I'm gonna have my identity be one who will regard the language. That's Bereshit, Shemot, Bamidbar. And Vayikra, oh, that's the book of Leviticus. That's laws for the Levites. That's a distraction. The word is Vayikra, which means he will learn to read the scripture. The one whose head is on fire and wants to have a name, go to the language and learn to read the scripture. And then the word Debarim, translated Deuteronomy, means words. It's all about the words. What about the words? Look at the next book, Yeshua, Joshua. Yahweh saves. But Shin Ayin is also, Shasha is delight. The place of the existing delight is learn to read these words. Yahuwah is found. Salvation that Yahweh promised, who he is and how it works, and what do you have to do to be his people? It's all in these words. Well, how do you know what the words mean? You better figure it out. The word Dan, that's the word for judge, the one who decides, I'm going to say it means this, I'm going to say it means that. Well, that's what the preachers and the professors and all those guys do, isn't it? The parents who say, by golly, in my house, this is the way we're going to do it. I'm the parent around here. Yeah, but what's a shofet? Well, the shofet's also a judge. But the shofet, the mishpat, the shofetim, the judge of Yahuwah, is to say, what a man does is return on his own head. That's the great mishpat. That's the great balancing of scales. And he says his throne is founded on mishpat and zadikah, righteousness and justice. Zadikah is victory, deliverance, and salvation, and righteousness. But mishpat is right ruling, justice, but it's also, what's the ultimate justice? A man's way returned on his own head. And he says, if you don't listen to the Torah, your prayers are an abomination. I can't hear you. Even so, Gimel Mem, back at you, a reversal turnaround like Gimel Lamed. Your attitude about my Torah is returned on your voice. If you think my voice is a crock of dung, then your voice is a crock of dung. That's the way it works. Did you ever have the church tell you that if you don't listen to Yahweh's words, your prayers go nowhere? They won't tell you that. God loves everybody. Oh, really? Well, he might love everybody, but you're not getting in, even if you answer the invite. Even if you RSVP'd and waiting and all dressed up like one of the 5 bridesmaids, you're not getting in if you don't have the oil. Even though he loves you. Gosh. And he talked about his people betraying him and that he was going to turn his nose, his character of fierce wrath. They incited his fury. But if we listen to him and walk in his ways, we're his darling, dear, coquette that he wants to lavish with mercy and grace. Rachem, chen, chesed. How do we listen to his words and turn him to that face we want to see? How do we do what he said to do? How do we use the things he gave us? Well, that's the word translated Kings. That's the next books in the Bible. Bereshit, Shemot, Bamidbar, Vayikra, Devarim, Yahusha, Shefatim, Melechim. Melech, translated king. Mem, the one who, the place, the way to. Lamed Kaf. Hey Lamed Kaf, Tav Lamed Kaf, Yod Lamed Kaf. This is the way you walk. Lamed Kaf, Lek Lekah, to you. This is what's been given to you. This is what I've told you. This is how you do what you are supposed to be doing. Melech, translated king. When you are characterized by expressing ALEF-TAV, being ALEF-TAV, being echad with ALEF-TAV, just like Yahusha was with his father. If that's what David is talking about in the first 8 verses of Psalm 119, Ashri, Ashri, anybody want to get blessed? Anybody want to be a blessing? Anybody want to be considered praiseworthy? That their life on earth was well lived and accomplished what it was possible for a man to accomplish by being here and walking the face of the earth for some 70 years or 100 years or 20 years or whatever it ends up being. Did you do it? Did you do the one thing that matters? Did you receive your name? Did you realize what life is for? Did you discover ALEF-TAV? Did you become one with ALEF-TAV? Does your character express ALEF-TAV? Do you af atah? Then at that time, Oz, Aleph Zion. Odeka, at the sound of your voice, ALEF-TAV, chok ika. Chok is command. Chok is the constitution. Chok is the protocols of the kingdom. Chok is the reality of everything the ALEF-TAV is about, that Yahuwah is about, that his kingdom is about. Your voice, when you express ALEF-TAV. So when Yeshua said, whatever you ask in my name, in Jesus' name, that's not what he meant, is it? He said, I only say what I hear my Father saying. I only do what I see my Father doing. If my Father says I'm ALEF-TAV, then Yeshua says, I'm ALEF-TAV. Then I should say, I'm ALEF-TAV. Then I better know what that means. I better be in ALEF-TAV. In his name. His name has to be everything about me. My prayer means nothing. But if it's, how much did Yeshua's prayers mean? Did he pray for something to happen? He saw what his Father was doing and spoke it, commanded it. That's et chokika. The last two words. And then what I'm saying is, as I've said before about this, about Psalms 119, that the first word of each verse in Psalm 119 starts with the letter of the alphabet in the group to which it's assigned. So in other words, there's 8 verses. The first word of each one of those 8 verses starts with the letter Aleph. And the words happen to be Ashri, Ashri, Af, Atah, Akli, Oz, Ukika, Udeka, et Hokika. And so one way of looking at Psalm 119, besides the meaning of the words, of the sentences, is to say, what if you could read the first word of each verse as if that was a sentence? So with an 8-word sentence, every word starts with an Aleph. And then in the next group of 8, there's 8-word sentence, every word starts with the letter Bet. And then there's an 8-word sentence, every word starts with the letter Gimel, and so far for the whole thing. Because David was a sofer, a scribe. He knew how to read. David's name was, he's the guy that knows the letters. He's the guy, well, yeah, he's the king, but David's the guy whose heart was after Yahweh. David said, I love your Torah. Will you show me what's in it? Will you show me what's really in it? I know it says don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't betray your neighbor with false accusations, but I know there's something else in there that even the Adon of the Vikings couldn't find. And the Jews who say Jesus Christ is an idiot, punk, infidel, they'll never see it. And every Christian who says, yeah, I don't care about those festivals, those stupid ceremonies of the Jews, that's where it's hidden. The Moedim, the bejewelment, the choice best ornamentation of Yahuwah Zavot. What a place to hide the truth. Who knew? We're out of time of end here.